Hello, friends. My name is Oluwashina Konde from Lagos, Nigeria, and you are listening to the Faith Culture Podcast. It's so nice to, sort of connect with you guys again after a long break. Happy New Year, by the way. And today on the Faith Culture Podcast, I have with me an amazing guest, a relationship coach, also certified relationship coach, actually, who happens to also be, someone who has been greatly involved in the single women's ministry. She's also a lover of Jesus, all the way from Bahamas. So it's so nice to have, Yvonne Chase on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Yvonne.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. Happy New Year, by the way.
Same to you. Same to you.
Thank you. Okay, so Yvonne, the conversation before us today it's an important conversation for many people, and that is because as Christians, when we talk about relationship, it is one thing that God is is interested in. And today we're talking about why Christian marriages fail. That's a very sad thing. I mean, when Christian marriages fail, because I don't think that is how God has designed, our marriages. I believe God has a better purpose. But before we talk about why Christian marriages fail, Yvonne, how would you define marriage?
If I look at the biblical definition, it's marriage between one man and one woman. It is coming together to fulfill God's plan and purpose for your life. I think that it's definitely not something to be entered into lightly. And I think it requires a lot of consideration beyond someone being a Christian. I think that's where Christians fail. We think that because someone says they're a Christian, then that's the beginning and the end of the conversation. And so I think that you need to look into what their faith means to them. I think it's important to find out when someone became a Christian, how they became a Christian, because some people think becoming a Christian is going to church every Sunday and getting baptized, and so I think that, God created marriage. He created it, in the beginning of Genesis. He said that it wasn't good for a man to be alone. He would create a suitable helper. That was the woman. And in saying that man shouldn't be alone, it offers companionship and relieves aloneness of a woman as well, right? Yeah. And so that would be just my bare bones explanation of what I think marriage is.
Cool stuff. I loved something you said. I mean, Christian marriage, or marriage in the context of of us as Christians, is more than the coming together of two churchgoers. It's actually more than that. I mean, the fact that you go wedded in church doesn't make your marriage a Christian marriage.
Right. And some people, again, that's a good point. And some people, again, they just think that because someone goes to church and because someone calls himself a Christian, that they are. And I think you have to look beyond the label and see how is it manifesting in their lifestyle, right? Because Christianity, it's a way of life. It's a way of being. It's more than a label. It's more than going to church. Going to church is something we do to grow our faith, but it's about a relationship. It's not about religion. It's not about doing things. It's about relationship, and how is that relationship changing you and affecting your life, affecting your decisions, affecting how you manage your day, right? So it's an all-encompassing lifestyle. It ought to be, anyway, in my estimation.
Yeah, great stuff, Yvonne. Just one more question before we sort of dive in, into the topic today, is the question of what really differentiates a Christian marriage from a non-Christian marriage?
Well, I think we have the Bible, right? So God created marriage for Christians, and so we have the Bible, and we have a manual that tells us how to do this thing, and we have the indwelling of the Holy Spirit to empower us, and we also have that indwelling to help us choose and make the best choice. Because God, as I said in my blog post, God is not going to say, well, you should marry this person. Maybe sometimes he does, but you're not going to open the Bible and it tell you this is the kind of person you should marry. Right? There's no scripture. You're not going to go to Psalm 23 or Psalm 55 and there's going to be a listing. But if you read the entire Bible and you put everything into context, there's much wisdom on how to make this choice.
Yeah.
And then once you make that choice, there's much wisdom on how to maintain a marriage that honors God.
Cool stuff. Yvonne, do you think God designed Christian marriages to sort of get to a point whereby it is possible for it to fail?
No, he wouldn't design it that way. That would not be a part of his design. It happens, and it happens for many reasons. You know, a lot of people get married for the wrong reason. A lot of people, especially in Christian culture, they get married because it's the thing to do. Many get married because they want to have sexual intercourse. Many get married because it's what their family expects. You know, so there are many reasons why people marry and many reasons why it fails.
Okay. I mean, thank you so much. Because I mean, when that for me speaks to the foundation of your marriage or the foundation of coming together. The foundation is not concrete. If the reason for getting married to someone is not genuine, you know, of course, it is very easy for such a union to hit the rock. All right, but now let's come to the conversation proper. Why Christian marriages fail. Yvonne, what from your own experience, from your own observation, and of course, you wrote about the Megan and Devon broken marriage. You know, very sad one. You know, but from all of this and all of, what would you say is the reason why good Christians, you know, who tend to come together, you know, still experience a failed marriage, considering the amounts of resources that is at their disposal?
Well, I don't know about a good Christian versus a bad Christian, but you know, if I were to use that couple, Megan and Devon, as an example, and the things that I mentioned in that post. So, for example, if he is adamant about not marrying an actress, a smoker, and a drinker, you can't say that God told you to do those things because God wouldn't tell you to do that. God is not going to tell you to participate in things that defile your temple where his Holy Spirit lives. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so I think that people, they try to fit a square peg into a round hole. They try to, you know, every person that I know that is either unhappily married or divorced, all of the evidence was there before they got married. It was there. And somehow people think that marriage is going to change it. Marriage is going to make this person change. Marriage is going to make this person want children. You know, there are hard deal breakers, you know, that people try to make a deal with. If somebody doesn't want children, it's not your responsibility to change their mind. You know, if somebody, I detest smoking. There's no way God is going to tell me to marry a smoker. And if he did, I'm not doing it because I can't stand it. Like I literally have a visceral reaction to somebody smoking around me. I don't like the smell. I don't want it in my home. Even if they were to smoke, I've met guys that say, oh, I smoke, but I'll smoke outside. You know, I won't. The fumes are coming with you. It's in your hair, it's in your skin, it's in your clothing. So that's just one example. That's not negotiable. And so I think that we have to remember that. We have to remember that what's important to us, you know, and because again, this is a lifelong decision you're making. You know, this is not about, oh, well, they like to, I don't know, eat popcorn for dinner and I like to eat a full meal. I mean, that's trivial. But when you're talking about values and when you're talking about vision and when you're talking about life purpose, you have to be on the same page in the same book. You have to be going in the same direction. You know, if we're going to go somewhere together, we got to go together. Now, if we're going to get there separate, then you go that way, I go this way, we'll get there eventually. But if we're going together, then we have to walk together and be on the same page.
Well, Wow, great stuff. Okay, so if I hear you well, you sort of seem to be saying that you know differences that were not well communicated, that were not or okay, disalignment, or I should put it that way, in personalities could be one of the major reasons why Christian marriages still fail.
Yeah, and I also think that I think again, you know, I don't know. I just think that people there's a readiness that needs to come with it, and again, you got to be clear on who this person is and what they want, and what you want, and if you can see that happening long term, there's if it's not there's a reason why we call these things deal breakers and non-negotiables,
Mhm.
and these are, again, they're traits of the relationship, not necessarily of the person, right? Because you don't have to change your personality to be in a relationship. God made you that way for a reason, right? So your personality is what it is. But now, if you say that I've seen couples where, okay, the guy is settled in his life, he's settled in his career, he's ready to be married, he's clear that he wants children. No guessing. No, he wants children, he wants a family. This is the vision that he sees happening for his life. And he'll meet a beautiful woman and they'll start getting to know each other. And she's on the fence about whether she wants children. They don't necessarily have the same vision for how they want their life to look. Of course, it's going to end in divorce, which it did, right? For another, not this couple, but for another couple that I know personally. And so um, there needs to be clarity about your non-negotiables. And I think, the Bible talks about vision, right? Writing out our vision and making it plain. I've sat in premarital class twice, and one of the questions the counselor asked was, what's the purpose for your marriage? And one of the things he gave us to do was write a mission statement. And those are the reasons I'm not married, because you realize we're not going the same direction. We don't want the same things. So, yeah, that's a long trip around answering your question.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Back to your blog post, just to take, for anyone who haven't read your blog post, you can find that particular blog post on giveonchase.com.
Should I put it in the chat?
Pardon?
Should I put a link in the chat or?
Okay, I have it, but I'm going to put it in the description once.
Okay, good.
Live. You can actually catch this blog post on, just check the description box, it will be there. Giveonchase.com. Yeah. Okay, so looking at the blog post, there was something that was said. It said, "Why divorce if there is no one at fault? And what does this is the next best chapter in the evolution of our love mean?" I've also had a couple of other things that Christians say when they get to divorce, stuff like irreconcilable differences.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you have to say about that?
About what specifically, the statement?
Okay.
Or
Yeah, about the statement, yeah, and the other statement that Christians make, like, we're going separate ways due to irreconcilable differences. And
I just think that, yeah, Devon said their marriage was irretrievably broken. That was the reason he gave. And if there's no reason to divorce and it's no one's fault, then why are you getting a divorce, right? And I think Christians, we have to do this thing different. We have to, we can't. Somebody left a comment on the post. Ouch, I'm going to read it, because I think a part of what she said is so great. And she said that it's so sad when people divorce and act like it's God's will, right? And that's clearly what I get when I hear them talk about why they're divorcing. Um, and I think that's the travesty of it all, because this brand of Christianity that some people are selling, it's false, um, and it needs to be stopped, because you know I don't believe it's God's will for them. People will put God in anything to justify their choices, their decisions, the things that they want to do, that they know that they ought not to do. So, but when you put God on it, it sounds great. Oh, God told me to do this. Yeah, you know, and um, and so I think I have a friend that's been married for over 25 years. Him and his wife, they're not Christians. And I remember asking him, and they've had their share of problems. Anybody that's married has had their share of problems, right? Personality conflicts, not getting along, arguments, you know. And I said to him, I said, how come you? And he's talked. I said to him, how come you haven't divorced? And he said, because I made a commitment. I made a commitment, and I'm a man of my word. I'm honoring my commitment. And him and his wife, they're figuring it out. You know, they are working through their issues. No, no greater issues than any other married couple is having. I mean, you put two people together that haven't been together before under one roof, they're going to have challenges. They're going to have conflicts. It could be big, it could be small. You know, at one point in his marriage, his wife got gravely ill. She almost died. So that put a tax on their marriage. She was in the hospital for about 4 months. My own brother was in a very difficult marriage. He got really sick in his marriage of 17 years, and he died at a very young age. And that was that destroyed their marriage, you know, because people get married, and I don't know, they're watching too many romantic comedies, if they're watching too many movies, and they think that, you know, marriage is going to be amazing and every day is going to be great. And I don't know why anybody would think that, because even when you're single, every day is not great, right? Life is still happening. You know, we're living in a pandemic. And I think that even now in the pandemic, people have been forced to deal with their marriages. Yeah. You know, they've been stuck in the house with their spouse, whereas maybe they weren't before the pandemic. You know, they're going out to work, they're doing activities. So, you know, they get to avoid and be invasive around a lot of things, right? I have another friend who's in a difficult marriage, and him and his wife have 2 children. And, you know, I've talked to him repeatedly. He's gone to therapy on his own, but I'm like, okay, now you and your wife go together, you know, and he's uncovered a lot of things in his marriage that had he known prior, he wouldn't have gotten married. And so I am currently getting my master's in marriage and family therapy. And one of the things I talked to him about was doing assessments that really let you look at what people come from, you know, what's been going on in their families through the generations, you know, so that you know, because we're all affected by what we come from, you know, yeah. And some of us are more clear on that than others, and so we're able to work through that before we even try to join with somebody. And but I think that when people say irreconcilable differences, they're just tired of trying. They're trying on their own. Nothing's working, and they're like, you know what? I'm out of here. Life is too short. You know, I want to enjoy the rest of my life, you know, without stress, and I'm gone. So.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So, you know, I'm aware that you know Devon, you know, personally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was also something you said that sort of struck me, and that is the fact that it is possible for marriages that have probably ended in divorce, you know, that shouldn't have ended in divorce, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but okay, so I'm trying to look at how, you know, to hear you share your thoughts on this. So what can couples, you know, do differently, you know? I mean, if, for example, you had a chance to speak with Yvonne and you say, okay, you know, say your marriage, I don't think it should have ended in divorce, and this is why I think it shouldn't have. And I mean, so but look at that and then answer this question, holistically, and to other people who are probably listening, they're already considering divorce. So what should they take? What should they do differently in order not to make their marriage end in divorce? I mean, this is for marriages that shouldn't actually even end in divorce. Yeah. And then I'm also going to ask you another question. Okay, at what point do you know that a marriage is is destined, or not destined, but a marriage should sort of lead? I mean, divorce should be the answer to to a particular marriage. Yeah.
Okay, so wait, what's the first question?
Yeah. So if you had the chance to speak with Devon, and you
Mhm.
you have the opinion that you don't think his marriage should have ended in divorce, and
No,
also
I'm not saying, no, I'm saying, no. What I said is that he wouldn't be getting a divorce if he didn't get married in the first place.
okay,
Right? I remember when so I met Devon at a book signing at my friend's house. And so we got a chance to talk and connect.
okay,
And I've seen him preach. He's prayed with me a couple of times. And my friend, she actually wanted to introduce us to each other in a romantic way. She was, like, maybe you all should date each other. I remember telling him, I said, I don't know. I said, he wants a light-skinned woman. And and I remember she and I, when she was like, he's dating Megan. And I said, really? And we had a long conversation about that from the standpoint of, we know him to be a Christian. We don't know her to be a Christian. You understand what I'm saying? And I remember telling my friend, I was like, you know what? I wish I could have a conversation with him and tell him not to do that, not to go into this marriage, because it's doomed for failure. Um, Devon wants children. He wants a family. Megan doesn't want that. She's made it clear that she's on the fence about it. She had to come around. You don't marry someone like that. You don't. It's not a. I wouldn't care if her name was Karen or Lisa, Michelle. Forget about Megan. Again, if you want children, you have to marry someone that wants it in the way that you want it. It's too big of a risk to say, well, maybe when I get married, I'll change my mind. But what if they don't? What if they don't change their mind? And now you're stuck in a marriage where you want children, and the only way you can have your children is if you divorce this woman. You understand what I'm saying? And so I would say to him, next time around, stick to what you want. If you want this, you don't want that, and your values are leading you, and you're trying to create a certain kind of relationship, stick to it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, to me, this could have been avoided. And again, when they got together, it was all this because nobody, I don't know. I've worked in the entertainment industry a long time. I was at the Jumping the Broom premiere when he and Megan came out to the public. And I've never heard anything about her being a Christian before she got with Devon, like ever. People in Hollywood know her to be the opposite. So it's like, how do you all of a sudden, it's almost as if you're playing a part to be in this marriage. And you know what happens when you play a part, it becomes exhausting after a while. You just want to be yourself, whatever that is, whatever part you're playing, whether it's a Christian, a kind woman, a submissive person, a happy person. After a while, it's like, I just need to be myself.
Yeah.
And so, and he's a Seventh-day Adventist, so he's going to church on Saturdays, etc. I just think that there was too much there that wasn't in alignment. And so nobody is shocked at the result of this. There are non-Christian people who had said that they are unequally yoked. So even non-Christians know how we're supposed to come together in marriage because they're watching us. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so people were like, oh, well, we're surprised this lasted for 9 years. So I would tell him, look, don't move on these things. If these things, whatever they are important to you, and they're value-based and they're characteristics of the relationship, not the person, you need to hold fast to that. And you need to trust God to bring you that. But Devon lives in Hollywood. He's compromised a lot. And so there's other variables inclusive in that. You know what I mean? It's very difficult. I've lived in Hollywood. It's very difficult to, as a Christian person, an uncompromising Christian person. Now, you can get really far if you're willing to have one leg in and one leg out. But when you put both of your feet together and you stand 10 toes down and you say, I am a Christian, I am filled with the Holy Spirit, these are my beliefs, etc., it's going to cost you something.
Absolutely.
It's going to cost you a lot. So that's what I would say to him. Like, be authentic in your faith and don't toe the line. And, hold fast to, this criteria, whatever it is.
Thank you so much, Evan. Okay, so just as we bring this to a wrap, I just wanted to speak to intending couples. I mean, you're a counselor. You've been involved in dating, counseling, all of that. So we have intending couples listening to this conversation, and they are Christians and they don't want a repeat of of a failed marriage. What would you advise them to sort of what sort of conversations would you advise them to have in order to prevent failure in marriage?
Okay, so they need to be looking at their family of origin, the kind of family they come from. They need to be looking at their parents, their marriage, generational behaviors and patterns that are productive and that are destructive, right? Because we are what we come from, right? And it's our responsibility to know that and then to work on those things that, are great and work on those things that are not, right? And family of origin is very important. You want to look at the history of relationships in your family. Is there a lot of happily married, or people separated? Are they divorced? Are they in broken marriages? So you want to look at that. And I also believe that you want to get clear on who you are and God's plan for your life, the gifting He's given you, the talents, your abilities, your purpose in the world, right? Because you want to know that you're coming together with someone that's in alignment with that, and even if they're not, that they can support that. Like, they're not going to be a distraction to that, right? And I also think that if you're thinking about getting married, that you should get some premarital therapy before you even get engaged, because when a couple is engaged already, they have really made a big financial investment. Oftentimes, there's a ring has been purchased, there's down payments on venues, and they've got invitations ready, and dresses are booked and venues. And then they get into this counseling, and it's like, wait a minute, this is not going to work. And they're not going to walk away because of the financial investment. Both times that I said in premarital counseling, there was no financial investment, which is why, and in the first time it was an 8-week course at my church. And by week 5, the guy just got like cold feet. He shut down and disappeared. And which was great, because that's what you want. That's you want to see these behaviors before you join your life with someone. Do you understand? And so if you can, any couple listening, if you're thinking about getting married, find a therapist and have these conversations about your family of origin, about, the history of relationships in your family, how you were raised, communication styles, conflict resolution. Those are the things that people argue about in marriage and in relationships. You want to have conversations about finance, who's spending, who's saving, how are we doing this? What's your ideas about money? So I say do all of that before you spend any money. And once you feel like you have, because it's not about perfection, but you want to make sure the right ingredients are there. And you don't want to build your house on sand, right? Because life is challenging. You want to build your life on a solid foundation so that when the wind comes, it withstands it.
Wow,
and I think that's the way to do that, to really have those conversations, starting with what you come from, your family history, your one of the things we do in marriage and family therapy is a genogram. And it is a straight outline of the emotional health of your family. And it looks at relationships, it looks at chronic illness, it looks at who's engaged, it looks at socioeconomic status. Like, it really looks at the health of the family that you come from. So imagine two people do this together. Like, you're getting to see, what you're joining with, if you choose to continue to join with this person. So that's, once I complete my degree, that's the work that I want to do. I want to because churches, my friend that's in a difficult marriage, he's a Christian, and we talk about it all the time. And he says, if he would have done premarital therapy instead of counseling, because churches aren't equipped to, they don't have the assessments. They don't have it's out of their scope of experience, right? They can pray with you. They can show you Bible verses, right? And that's fine. But you also need you need the other side of it that really looks at the individual and how these two people are going to merge together. So that would be my recommendation. If you're thinking about getting married, don't spend any money yet. Have some conversations, have some important conversations.
Wow. I'm sure someone listening will find that very helpful.
I hope so.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so this is probably be my last question.
Okay.
Then, okay. All right. So, let's just help someone listening, and maybe already married, and they're thinking of divorce, and or probably listening to this, and they're not sure if they should move on with it or they shouldn't. What would you? Are there things to like look out for to say, okay, this marriage should actually, should be called off, or are there? So what would you say? What do you have to say about that? Because some persons are, they're already considering divorce already, and
Sure.
but they're just having one tiny thread just holding them back, and they don't know if that's the right thing to do, or they should go. So what should be the checkers for considering divorce, for holding on and trusting God?
If there is any kind of abuse, verbal, physical, emotional, spiritual, leave. I didn't say get a divorce, I said leave, because that's unacceptable. So if you're in that situation, get to a place of safety, so that you can protect your mind, protect your heart. God did not create any of us to be abused in any way. So if it's abuse, leave. And again, leaving doesn't mean divorce. Leaving does mean getting to a place of safety. And then once you get to a place of safety, you find yourself a good therapist, and you walk through that and you make your decision. So that's my hard stance on abuse. I have no tolerance for it, no acceptance of it. It's unacceptable. And leave, get to a place of safety. If you are thinking about divorce for other reasons, and oftentimes it's couples not getting along, they're not seeing eye to eye, again, there's a place for counseling and there's a place for therapy, right? Find a good therapist. You want to go to counseling. I remember talking to a Christian therapist, and he said to me that churches aren't necessarily equipped to handle the issues that people have in their marriage. And so he tells churches that if you have to talk to a couple more than 3 times, send them to a therapist, because you can't handle, it's out of your scope, right? And so I say that find a good therapist. If it's one of those things where you want children and the other person doesn't, you got to move along. It's never going to work. It's never going to work. It's an unfortunate divorce, but it's never going to work.
You don't think they should consider probably adoption or something?
Well, again, right? There's a difference between if a mother wants to experience having children physically, adoption is not going to solve that. So again, there's different ways to create a family. And that's why you have to be really clear. If a person wants to have a family, you need to ask them, and this is for single people, what does that mean to you? Are you talking adoption? Are you talking a surrogate? If we can't do it naturally, are you talking IVF? Are you talking a foster kid? What are you talking about? Because I need to make sure we have the same understanding. There's different ways to create a family. You know what I mean? If somebody wants to be, if a woman wants to carry a baby, you know, and adoption is not going to be the answer for that. So, you know, in that instance, yes, adoption, it's always an option. But for some people, they don't want that. You know what I mean? And so again, I just, you know, if you're in that place where, I had a friend, unfortunately, I have a lot of friends that are just, I mean, you know, they've got kids. One of my friends stayed in a marriage for a long time, and he was like, you know what, I left finally because I don't want my daughter seeing us not getting along. We're not sleeping in the same room. We're modeling bad relationship behavior to her. This is not what I want for her to see. And, you know, and when you go to therapy, you got to be honest. You know, you have to both be honest if this is going to work. And so I think it depends on what the issues are, you know, but I always say, find a therapist and see what you can, and see what's possible between you and your spouse. But if you're getting abused, leave, pack your bags or with the clothes on your back and go. Get to safety and then figure out therapy, counseling, or whatever. Do not stay in an abusive marriage of any kind.
Wow, awesome. This has been very insightful. Thank you so much, Yvonne. What are your final words on the topic tonight?
My final words are, be honest with yourself about, for singles, why, if you're thinking about getting married, why do you want to get married? What do you think marriage is going to do for you? Right? Are you getting married because you want to feel better about yourself? Are you getting married because it's what your parents expect? Are you getting married because it's what society expects? Are you getting married because you want to have sex? Because, you know, so be real clear about why you're making this decision. And then take the time to be honest about what your non-negotiables are, right? And that's the point of non-negotiables. It makes dating easy, right? If you go on a date with a guy and, you know, he says he never wants to be married, you know, just the idea of, you know, being locked down forever, that's not your person. So it's like, oh, we had a great date. Thank you. And we're not doing this again. You know what I mean? And so I think people need to just get real clear on what those non-negotiables are and the kind of relationship they want to create. And stop putting God in places where he doesn't belong. God is never going to tell you to marry a woman that lives with 1,000 cats and you have an allergy to cats. Like, I don't serve that kind of God. I mean, what is that? I mean, I don't serve that kind of God. He's not. What would be the point of him telling me to do that? To deliver her from her cat? That's not my responsibility. If she likes 1,000 cats, have at it. You know what I mean? So I think those are my final words. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to be married? And then prepare yourself. Like, everybody's looking outward. Well, he's got to be this and she's got to be that. Well, what are you? How are you showing? Are you ready? Do you have good communication skills? Can you handle conflict? Do you have the ability to be vulnerable and to really be transparent? You know? Get your house in order. And I'm not talking about having all the ducks in a row and having a certain amount of money in the bank. And I'm not talking about any of those things, because you and I both know all of that is subject to change. We had a pandemic that destroyed people's lives. People lost their jobs. People had to live off of their savings. People had to, rely on other sources. So I'm not talking about any of those things that are subject to change. You know what I mean? You want to be with someone that can show you that when life changes, they have the capacity and the skill set to change with it. Because it's going to change. The wind is going to blow. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Storms are coming. They're coming. It's not if, it's when. So when the storm comes, what are we going to do? Are we going to lean into each other? Are we going to lean on our faith? or are we going to pit ourselves against each other, tear our house down with both of our hands? And I don't think people understand. And I think about my brother's marriage a lot. He got really sick in his marriage. And it could have been handled in a way that brought them closer together. But it came out of the blue. It wasn't expected, right? Yeah. And, you know, and so these are the types of conversations. There's enough of life has happened to give single people things to talk about, right? You're dating someone. Okay, we're in a pandemic. What happens if you lose your job? How are you handling your mental health living at home alone? You know, if you're single, well, like, what are you doing? So enough of life has happened to give us information about things we want to be talking about. Because the wind is coming. The storm, it's coming. You know what I mean? And beyond being a Christian, you know, you definitely, I think you need to ask someone, when did you become a Christian and how? Do you know how many people are stumped by that question? They don't know how to answer it. I can tell you, I became a Christian at the age of 16. I was at church. I was sitting in the last row up against the wall. I walked down the aisle, said a prayer. That was the beginning. But then it's been a lifelong journey of me attending church and reading the word and allowing the Holy Spirit to change my life and growing, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So you can't just take it at face value when someone says, oh, I'm a Christian, I go to church. That means nothing. I mean, all kinds of people go to church. Yeah. Molesters, abusers, rapists, killers, they all go to church. Liars, thieves. So I just think that, you know, we need to be clear on why we want to be doing this, and then get clear on our non-negotiables and the kind of relationship we want to create and the kind of person we need to be to create that kind of relationship. And don't be putting God in places where he's not. Just don't do it.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Did that. And we see the end result of that.
Oh, very sad. Very sad. Yeah. Very sad. Okay, thank you so much. I mean, this has been an enriching conversation. And I really want to thank you so much for being vulnerable, for being willing to give all of yourself to us on this podcast. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, guys, that is all we have for you today on the Faith Culture Podcast. I believe you have been inspired. You have been, you got a lot of insight on how to pursue your relationship if you're a single person. And if you're already married, I mean, you've listened to some of the things that Yvonne have said. You can please listen to this episode over and over again. You know, make some assessment, seek therapy, seek counseling. Don't just, don't just think you can handle all of these things alone. You know, you need therapy, you need counseling, you need the support of church and all of that. I mean, it's been an insightful conversation, and I trust that you have been mightily blessed by this episode.
Yes.
If you have anyone who, you'd love to say something, even?
No, I was just listening to you. You said you were going to put the link to my website over there.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. All right. Okay, so if you have anyone who you would love to listen to this episode, please do us a favor, share this episode with them, let them also be blessed, right? And if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, I want to say thank you so much. If you have just stumbled on this podcast as well, I want to say welcome to the Faith Culture Podcast. It's really nice sharing this platform with you all. All right, so for more about my guest today, Yvonne Chase, I'm going to be putting you're going to be just check the description box. You're going to find details about our website, or where to follow her on Twitter or any other social media platform that she's on. She's going to be a blessing to you. I promise you. All right, guys. Really nice speaking to you today. Until I come your way next time, keep your faith alive. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just